Hello, everyone. I have another story to share with you from Edgar Allan Poe. Some of the stories that I channeled from the book Macabre, Short Stories and Poems from the Other Side. The story is called Underwood, and there's really a backstory to how this story came about. And many of the times I was interacting with Poe and he was giving me this story, but in this occasion, I happened to be doing laundry of all things. And as I was doing laundry, a voice came to me and started speaking. And he said, "I have a story for you." And I said, "Okay, but I'm doing laundry right now. I'll go up there." And they said, "No, I have a story for you. You need to hear my story." And so, of course, being kind of receptive, a little naive, I didn't really question a lot at that time. But I started writing this story of this individual. I won't say it's fully human. It has to be something else according to the way the story went, and not of a good nature. But like many criminal types, they like to boast about what they do. Sort of like the serial killers, like in Jack the Ripper. And in this case, these astral beings, whether they have this immortality or vampirism or whatever it is. And we tend to glamorize it because it's supernatural of what they're able to do. But at the time, I was just curious. I wanted to hear the story. But in the end, the story seemed quite interesting. So here is the story, and I will put the pieces together afterwards, some of the things that I came to a point of conclusion and understanding regarding this story, and I'll share that with you afterwards.
Underwood. There was once a man named Underwood, a curious fellow with deep-set hazel eyes and brown flowing hair. He never had a worry and never had a care. He strolled through the countryside of England. He wore clothing that was similar to a peasant's, but his stroll was that of a royalty. Charming Underwood was sweet on all the ladies. He could charm away their knickers and fancy lace dresses. It didn't matter that his pocket was usually empty. Some say he was a rogue of the most despicable sort. Others say he could charm the socks of the highest royal-crested court. Cunning Underwood always knew what was best. He carried a watch in his right hip pocket to see what time it was and where he may find an open invitation to a park lunch. Never late for tea, he remembered the ladies in waiting. He would stroll in through their front door, head to his favorite chair, and wait as the tea was carefully delivered to him. A charming rogue, a handsome sort. His flowing brown hair made women tremble and sport. They would flutter their long eyelashes, flip their hair, and sigh under his hypnotic, amorous stare.
How I love that Underwood. He is gallant and spry. He moves so lithely it makes my heart tremble inside. In one fell swoop, he is close to kiss. Another moment, he is off in a twist. And we cannot help our fluttering hearts when he tells us a story of his travels from afar,
said Lady Desiree with a flirtatious smile. Every day Underwood would appear at royal estates and high society lands. None of the men knew he visited their wives every day. It was as if he was invisible and could sneak into any parlor with ease, then magically disappear. This happened for years, and his charming presence was made known among all the women, both far and near. Though all the men were disheartened, they didn't want to admit he existed, and they laughed the women to scorn. "What man do you speak of? There is no such gent named Underwood in our country. This must be lore. Is this truly a joke, or is he hidden amongst us?" Then all the men became suspicious that there was a rogue within their presence. "What type of man would visit our ladies while we are hunting or traveling to exchange with merchants in the neighboring hamlets? He must be a great betrayer of our common law," they decreed. "He must be punished for all the wrong he has done." So the men gathered in the local cathedral. "We will make you all honest today and invite all our ladies. This is the day when men must speak the truth in front of heaven. We will discover this rogue who has been secretly charming our women." So the men of high society all gathered around. "Just wait, we must invite all the rogues in town. How can we tell if someone's missing? All men must appear in the white cathedral that is glistening." The cathedral became filled with men of all sorts. Some tall, some short, some stocky, some slim, some wealthy with silk garments, some poverty-stricken. Then came in the brawny blacksmiths, the hunters of deer, the captains of ships, and a few buccaneers. Some young, some old, some shy, some bold, and none of them were excluded, so we were told. Then there was a moment of silence. A judge stepped in of the highest order. "Let's begin our search for this brazen rogue who has crept into the hearts of our ladies in their homes. Let's create a line and show the men one at a time. All ladies stand side by side and view each man as he crosses by. Let 2 or more women identify. If one is selected, we will pull him aside and review him again to see if he should be tried. I shall then proclaim his punishment throughout the land, to make sure that he has paid hard labor due to every man." So the men lined up, and the ladies stood in wait. Each gentleman appeared tense and nervously moved with haste. "I know I am innocent, but, dear Lord, how bad would it be if I were mistaken as this rogue man who walks so free?" The women shook their heads until they couldn't shake any more. A pirate's young son was almost mistaken for the rogue. His long flowing brown hair was similar in ways. The way he walked in confidence made the ladies tap their legs. Yet his eyes were brown, not a hint of gold or green. "We know this isn't Underwood. He is not nearly so gentlemanly." The day grew long, and the women grew weary. The sun set down on the glistening cathedral. The light filtered through the stained glass, and heavenly sky opened. A majestic moment to see the colors of light intertwine within the cathedral. So many of the men brought one knee to the ground in reverence of the heavens when the universe turned the light on. No one was identified, and each burdened husband stared in despair. "What shall we do? The rogue never did appear." A minister entered in. "Let's light some candles. We should have a meeting right now to see if we can request help from our angels. Let's hold a vigil and watch throughout the night. We want to keep peace in our fair hamlet and keep our loved ones protected tight." The women now felt shame as they saw the faces of their husbands' pain. Then Lady Desiree spoke demurely and plain.
"We were taken in by this rogue because we feel your love for us has waned. You pay little attention to us and do not feel our pain. We talk to you with kindness. We smell of rose petals. Our dresses are the finest of silk, and our hair and faces look meticulous. We no longer felt your love, and we're waiting each day for you to arrive and romantically whisk us away. We wanted to hear that we still looked lovely, like the day when we met, when you told me you loved me."
She glanced at her noble husband with sad eyes.
"I am sorry, my dear."
And she let out with bold tears. The minister stood up, feeling the need to speak. "We need to know a thorough description of this rogue. Could it be that they were bewitched? He has not shown his face, nor resembles anyone here. Is this man from a foreign land, or did he have an accent that was different?"
"No, sir, this is not the case,"
said the ladies in waiting.
"He mentioned many worldly travels of faraway places and ancient rebels. He wore pauper's clothing, and he didn't have any money. Come to think of it, he had the clean scent of a noble. His hair was always shiny. His face had an appearance of a gentleman who never struggled. Yet, throughout the kingdom, he was never noticed. I can't remember seeing him in his youth. He appeared as a grown man and claimed to know us. He seemed so familiar. We believed his words completely."
Then stepped forward a powerful nobleman. He was wealthy and bitter, from a love lost many years ago. He made a pact with evil and decided to repay the locals for making him an outcast. Every man and woman in the hamlet judged his eccentric ways. The cathedral grew dim, and a ghostly mist appeared up to his ankles. He moved so lightly and lithely as if he floated on his feet. His long white hair had then transformed to chestnut brown. The wavy strands were neat and shiny as they rested upon his shoulders. His ornate, elegant silk jacket turned to a pauper's coat. His neatly tucked attire converted into a poor man's outfit. His eyes began to shine in an alluring, sinister way. His face became young and youthful, much as he appeared in his 20s. For this man was nearly 94 years old, and he had so many wrinkles. An elderly farmer stepped forward to see him and looked close upon his transformed appearance. "Ah, yes, I haven't seen that face just short of a century. Where did you find this fountain of youth? No one remembers what you used to look like," as he glanced at him and played with his broken tooth. "They called him Underwood in his youth. No one remembers but me. He was quite the ladies' man and fell in love with the married queen. A dastardly fellow, so wealthy and powerful. We didn't dare say anything to him because we feared for our lives. He never cared for the common folk, so we left him alone to his own demise. Years later, he fell in love with the niece of the queen and married her in haste, while still holding a flame of vengeance against the queen's memory that he wished to erase. His bitter heart turned to sorrow as this man lost his wife to an illness. He never quite recovered from both the lady and his mistress. Then Underwood spoke boldly. "Stop babbling, you fool! What business have you mentioning stories of my youth? I have made my presence known to all of you who live here now. I have walked this countryside alone for many years and loved its beautiful hills and fields. Better yet, the lovely flowers that live in your elegant houses have been waiting to be picked and planted in my garden. You never cared for them, nor felt the emptiness of their hearts. While they are pining for your love alone in empty fields, having picnics with their friends, you have been spending too much time ignoring them. I, a man of deep, romantic love, who can calm their senses with my romantic words and an amorous touch. They feel whole and feminine and warm inside. They fix their lovely hair when I enter their homes. I thought to myself, what a waste to see these lovely creatures ignored. Why leave out a banquet of food on your porch when you know that wild beasts await to enjoy every course?" "Enough, enough! I have heard enough!" shouted the judge, as he let down his gavel hard upon the table. "This man shall be punished, regardless of his age and financial status. With hard labor, he will repay each man whom he has injured and who lives in this hamlet." Then a wind came through the door, and Underwood fell to the floor. He appeared as ashes in a pile near his clothes. The door opened wide. Then the wind pulled back a spiritual essence that swirled and transformed in a snap. No one knew what happened to him as he left. What manner of being could disappear like that? The room was so silent. A soft echo from a leaf tapped on the floor, from the light wind remaining by the door. The following morning, and day after day, the men in the hamlet went to view Underwood's estate. He no longer lived there. He never returned. Some say they could see him strolling in the neighborhood woods. Others say they could see him moving lithely across the valley. He continued to charm lonely women when they thought of infidelity. The men were not to blame, and the women were the same. They both fell prey to the temptations of the day. Each woman must decide if her wedding vows were full of virtue. Each man must consider if he should continue to be true. Underwood is a man who arrives in every town, searches for discontented wives, and seeks to deceive and manipulate each perfectly polished home. For those who do enter into his snare, there will be a greater discontentment awaiting there.
So it's a very interesting story, and it sort of has, you can almost see the picturesque town and the innocence in the town. And I mean, it's not 100% credible. We know that there has been always this element of infidelity and deception and mistrust, but it's kind of portrays the loss of innocence. The loss of innocence as a village is a loss of innocence regarding relationships. You can see the torment of the husbands and then the shame of the wives afterwards. But also there's that element of trickery, deception, magic, and I couldn't help but think about this movie that I just recently watched called The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman in 1957. The story takes place in Sweden. And there is a scene there where these troubadours come in, they perform. There's some very strong religious kind of macabre types of worry and fear, and the earth is, the world's going to end and everyone's going to die by the plague, and kind of similar to what we're going through right now. And I guess my research in this artwork called The Dance Macabre, which showed, all the different types of powerful individuals such as rulers and I think the Pope and other people like royals and so forth. And in between each one of them is this dancing skeleton. And so this artwork kind of, I followed that, and before I knew it, I was looking at this movie by Ingmar Bergman and decided to watch it. And I had watched it years before, but now I reviewed it again with fresh eyes, and I started to see how, the Max von Sydow has an interplay with this being called Death, and they play a chess game. And here you see that chessboard, the black and white checkered board that you commonly see in a lot of the esoteric imageries. And so, everything plays out in this sort of a darkness, but between this is this a whole human experience where you see this man and he's standing next to his wife, and his wife goes off and has an affair with one of the troubadours, and she's gone. He can't find her, and he knows that there was some kind of foul play, and he literally, a big rugged man, and he was brought to tears, and he's weeping during, a good portion of this movie. And so you see that kind of thing going on, and so which brought me back to the story of Underwood and how the men are very, unsettled in their, we've been working, we were doing things, and here he's saying that they weren't happy with us, that they were, needing that attention, that we weren't giving them that attention, and meanwhile this man is deceiving us, and then he comes in, and not only that, but we can't even find him. We make sure everyone else is there. We want to see the truth. And when the truth unfolds, this is supernatural. And the man, who is in his 90s, suddenly transforms right before everyone into someone much younger, and then he disappears. And so you know that there's something else going on. And there's a lot in our world that are there's many things that are unexplained. A lot of these stories of unexplained events, people that are missing, and strange time anomalies and so forth, which is common for us to discuss in this channel. But there's still some other things to look at. There's also the fact that Edgar Allan Poe, which I don't believe this is Edgar Allan Poe's story, but it could be that it was included because Edgar Allan Poe also had some infidelity or some issues, unfaithfulness regarding his relationship to his wife Virginia, who that was me at that time, and in some way allowing the story to come through, acknowledging some of the circumstances that occurred at that time, and the words betrayal, innocence lost, deception temptations, and so forth, that break down the relationships, and that if a person has a desire to do that, there'll always be someone that will accommodate that event. But now I'm going to go into something else that I thought was interesting. So this story was written around 2011, and possibly maybe even sooner than that. It could have been around the spring of 2010, and we see this, that in 2013 a TV show comes out called The House of Cards, and Kevin Spacey is the highlight of that show. He plays someone called Francis or Frank Underwood, and there's the name Underwood. And it's based on a novel of the same title. And, it's the whole story. It's about, betrayal and similar types of indiscretions. And so I couldn't help but think, well, isn't that interesting that we have this Kevin Spacey, is also known as Paul Serene. And, when I heard about that, I was a little shocked, because I remember going into a store seeing vote for Underwood, and I didn't know what that meant, and I thought it was funny. And I had no idea about the TV show. So, there you have it. Kind of a story from the astral, a being that I probably wouldn't talk to at this present time. But I thought, in the end, the story was quite revealing. So, I think it was worthy of sharing. And I just want to say thank you for listening. And please share your thoughts and ideas below.